Hey there fellow creators, Ben here from Timbra Studios, and I am currently working on developing a new painting technique. It's still kind of in progress, but I'm excited to show you what I've got going on, so stick around. So the technique I'm working on developing, I'm sort of coming to call subtractive oil and acrylic painting. Now, subtractive techniques have been around for a very long time, and I don't claim to be developing and creating a subtractive technique because, well, that's something that exists already. But my take on this particular form of subtractive painting, I think, is actually kind of unique. It's something that kind of harkens back to old like scratch paper, scratchboard stuff that I did when I was a kid, but applying those ideas and the ideals behind them with a lot more color behind them and on top of them at the same time. So let me show you what this kind of stuff I'm working on today. Okay, so pardon the tripod shot here, but I wanted to give you guys a nice wide angle of all the crap that I'm working on right now. So what I've been doing lately is been doing these projects that start out sort of as oil buff techniques and then end with an acrylic overlay. So this is a piece that I did maybe about a couple of weeks ago. So the base of this is oil paint, black acrylic on top of that, and then some subtractive techniques on top, or rather not too much on top of that, but to lift that away, to pull that underlying color out. This is a really fun little technique, simple subtractive stuff, but it involves a lot of layering and a lot of letting things dry. So I've got a few different projects in here. Most of them are in varying levels of completion. But what I have been starting with is either wood or slate. So here's a piece of wood that I've had sitting for a couple of months now, actually, and I just picked it up again, realizing, hey, that's just a technique I can do on that. This has an oil base with an acrylic overlay as a sealer, but gives you a nice sort of warm, in this case sort of warm cool, because we're playing with both yellow and green here. Swirly colors, really abstract kind of stuff like that. I've been using these RNF oil pigment sticks for the majority of this stuff. I do have a couple of tube colors I've been playing with, but not a ton. That's what I was looking for. Quick Kleenex to wipe that off with. Because these sticks, once they dry, they kind of get a little skin on top of them, so you got to pull that off. So I've been working with, yeah, most of my pieces of slate. This is just a little half, or maybe a third of a piece. And a lot of times when I'm doing anything with these slate, I'm prepping this. I'm putting a lot of acrylic layers on top of this to get it, to smooth all this out. I'm actually been working just with this regular the slate base without having to worry about having to prep the surface or anything like that. I'm just going straight onto that surface and working with at most 2 or 3 colors. So I'm keeping a really simple gradients. Oh, that's a brand new stick right there. And just building up some base color. And of course, depending on how much I put on, it's going to depend on how long it takes to dry. And how much I wipe away as well. I'm going to start this off just with, so what is this, like a Mars Red, I think, and then this Sienna Yellow Extra Pale, which is a nice sort of whitish color, leans a little more yellow. Yeah, there's not enough of that on there. I just wiped all that off. But yeah, I've been playing around with these simple base oil techniques without the need for a brush, which is why I love using these pigment sticks. I don't have to worry about having a brush on me. And keeping maybe that color blend even more on the abstract side. So I'll do something like that. I might give that another layer a little bit later, probably in a couple of days when it dries. And I'm setting these projects aside. I mean, projects like this and like this and like this have been sitting for the better part of 3 weeks to 6 months. Not that it actually takes oil paint 6 months to dry, well, usually, unless you're painting really thick. So I'm starting just with a color base. And then on top of that color base, I'm doing, I've been leaning towards some black acrylic paint marker, although I'm playing with some projects using a white acrylic paint marker on some darker surfaces. But I'm really just trying to look for really simple basic shapes that kind of work within the realm of the color. This is actually a much smoother, or I'm used to working on a much smoother surface. This surface is a little bit rougher. So I'm actually not sure how much the paint marker here is going to accept that. Seems to be okay. Working on some just really basic shapes and things, a lot of stuff that I do in my sketchbook on a regular basis. Keeping my shapes and everything else relatively loose. And because this is an acrylic overlay over top of dried oils, this doesn't actually take a whole lot of time to dry. I'm probably going to give this a little more acrylic layer. I might even do some brush layers over top of this. And then I end up with something sort of at the end when the acrylic and the oil layers are dry, something like this. And this is where this technique really starts to kind of show itself off. Because I grab some rubbing alcohol and some Q-tips, and because I did this entire undercolor, so this gradient they're seeing from here to what this is, so I'm leaning towards almost like a waterfall kind of color here, or structure. All of that color is underneath, and because it's oil, because it's a lot thicker than the thin layer of acrylic that I let dry, I can come in and subtract selective areas of that color and just pull that away. This would probably work with a brush. And so the rubbing alcohol is pulling the oil or the acrylic off, but the oil is staying put. And I actually didn't even do like an isolation coat between the oil and the acrylic, just because I know the rubbing alcohol won't affect the oil, at least generally speaking. So I can be even like a little bit rough with it to pull the acrylic color off. And just start pulling that away. And then as a final coat, I'll maybe come in with like a white gouache or something like that, or even like a thin white acrylic, maybe even a white ink pen, like the Uniball Signos. They're the UM153 pens. But that little bit of subtractiveness that you get, or maybe even a lot of bit of subtractiveness if you decide to pull a little bit more away, you can really kind of play around with exactly where you want those lines and keeping all those darks in there, but then using that more subtractive technique versus an additive technique. So that way you get some really more interesting shapes and ideas behind that. But like I said, this is a technique I'm developing. I'm still not 100% where I want to be with it, but it's really fun experimenting with all these different projects and all these different materials to see what I can do with them. Such a large part of the creative process is doing stuff like this, the in-between projects, the creative, let's smear some of this on a canvas or a piece of wood or a hunk of slate and see what it does. And maybe I made a mistake and let's pull some away, but hey, suddenly I just made a new type of painting concept. Like I said though, I'm still kind of developing this technique and trying to turn it into something that I can use on a more regular basis. But right now, it's really fun to just be cranking out these projects that maybe aren't my best work, but they're things that are definitely pushing me in a new direction. And I think in the long run, showing you guys this process and the fact that I'm not totally confident right now is hopefully inspiring to you to say that, no, that's a good thing. Keep pushing yourself further. Keep pushing your work further, even if it doesn't always turn out real great. Well, after making all this mess, I think I'm about due to actually clean up my studio table because I've got 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8 projects going on right now, and plus another 2 in the wings. So it's time for me to actually kind of reorganize and figure out exactly what I'm going to be painting next. So if you enjoyed this little process into, or my insight into my process, go ahead and hit the like button. It really helps the video out. Consider supporting on Patreon to help me out, and so I can keep financially supporting the channel. Be sure to like on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the social media stuff. Available in the description box below. And as always, this has been from Cinderblock Studios. Thanks for watching. Keep on creating, and I'll see you guys next time. Yeah, my back hurts. My back hurts. My back hurts.